Happy Earth Day, everyone. I hope you all have a beautiful day today. Welcome to our third in the series of virtual APWA street conference sessions. I am Renee Railsback, and I am the co-chair of the Street Conference Committee. I'm glad you all could join us today. Just a few housekeeping items before we get started. Our session is being recorded and will be posted on our APWA chapter website afterward. Initially, everyone is muted. This is just a reminder that if you are not the speaker, to stay muted, we will ask for questions, and then you can unmute yourself at that time to ask any questions you might have. You can post your questions in the chat pod or in the question and answer pod at any time throughout the presentation, and we will address those as well. After both speakers have presented their programs, we will open it up to general questions and discussion, and you can unmute at that time and ask your questions directly to the speakers. First off, I'd like to introduce Joe Bob Lucero with APWA's West Slope Chapter Board to talk about their scholarships and professional development opportunities. Joe Bob?
Thank you, Renee. Yeah, my name is Joe Bob Lucero. I am with the West Slope branch of the APWA. And what I want to talk to you guys about is our professional development scholarship. So we have money. We have money sitting, waiting for you guys to come and get it. We know that times are tight right now, and the trainings have been kind of lax with this COVID situation. But we have money. We have money for trainings. We have money for certifications. We have the money that you guys need to get your guys properly trained and certified for their job. How you go about getting this money. We have an application. Go to the colorado.apwa.net and then click on the menu icon. You're going to go down and find branches. Click on the branches, go to the West Slope branch news, and it'll pop right up. On the very bottom will be the application. Apply. That money is there to use. We want you guys to be trained. We want you guys to have the ability to get training and certification for your guys, for your coworkers, for in many different programs. We do transportation, street, engineering, open spaces, trails, parks, solid waste, landfill, recycling, fleet services, mechanics, HVAC, water treatment, and wastewater treatment. There are so many certifications that I can think of just by naming those that cost money, and we have that money for you. So please go and apply. It's open until I believe the June 30th of this year. But guess what? It renews next year. So if you have something coming up and you know about it, please apply for that money. We have that money for you. And I think that's all I had. If you had anybody had any questions, you can email me. It's jlucero@gunnison.com or .org, sorry. And please, if you have any questions, please hit me up and I will try to help you and direct you in the right direction. Thank you, Renee. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Joe Bob. And definitely let's make use of those opportunities and that funding. Let's not let it go to waste. It's for all of you guys. I'd like to recognize and thank all the members of the Karma Board who helped pull together all these street conference sessions for our virtual conference this year. There will be one more session held next Thursday, April 29th, with 2 municipalities addressing shared use of public facilities and services as a way to maximize agency resources and increase return on your investment dollars. So check that one out, register if you haven't yet already. Today's topic is on pavement preservation. Implementing pavement preservation treatments at the right time on the right project with quality materials offers a proven cost-effective approach to extending the overall service life of your pavements. Today we have 2 representatives from municipalities that will present their best practices for optimizing infrastructure performance. First, we have Brian Kelly. Brian has served as the engineering manager for the town of Castle Rock since 2019. As the engineering manager, Brian oversees the town's pavement management program projects and roadway capital projects. Prior to Castle Rock, Brian was employed with the city of Colorado Springs. His experience spans paving maintenance, transportation, capital projects, stormwater capital projects, land development engineering, right-of-way management, and asset management. He's also served as a facilities engineer and combat engineer with the U.S. Army in various locations around the world. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Renee. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Let me go ahead and get my slides loaded and we'll get going. All right. Can we see that all right?
Yes.
All right, let's get started. So good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to present on the town's pavement maintenance program and asset management. The purpose of this presentation is to share the town's experience for implementing its pavement program, what we call the PMP, and best practices. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's dive in. Just to give you a little background about Castle Rock will help better understand the basis of our program. The population is 77,000 as of March this year, growing steadily. We've added nearly 30,000 residents since 2010. We have 710 lane miles of roadway as of January of this year, and we're steadily adding to that with 17 lane miles each year with new development. We're located at the busy crossroads of Highway 85, Highway 86, and I-25. We rely almost exclusively on sales tax and development impact fees. And also, the town has a really strong community vision and values that support infrastructure quality. So we're very fortunate in that respect. For the, like all of our transportation assets, knowing the value the community receives from our pavements helps focus our resources. Public Works focuses on these 5 values in all that we do. With pavements, low total cost is the primary area of focus, which is in green on the left. Some of the recommendations that we have for an effective program include focus on value that the community desires from the infrastructure. Town leadership, vision, and ownership represent what I term the MAN, which is an acronym standing for those with the money, the authority, and the need. So those are the people that really need to be convinced that we need to have a good pavement program. Having adequate and consistent budgets for roadway maintenance, as everybody knows, it's a very needs-driven system. And results, we recommend that the public see quality improvements to breed trust in order to continue the program. Building quality streets begins with enforcing quality standards. So not just in the maintenance, but in the initial construction. So we look to APWA, MEGPEG, and other types of standards to get the right type of pavements down so they will stand the test of time. Also, one item that we do recently is we consider the haul routes on subdivisions. For example, you have a subdivision that's going to develop for maybe 5 to 10 years. The primary collectors and arterials that go into that subdivision need to account for the design of the extra impact of those construction vehicles over that period. So that really causes a lot of factors to get a better quality design. And then town staff working as a cohesive team, having a growth mindset. And of course, we recommend implementing an asset management plan for your pavements. So the cover sheet on the right is our strategic asset management plan. It's a policy that applies across all asset classes. The AMP, which we call it for short, implements the SAMP policy at the individual asset class level, which is pavements. So one of our strategies is telling our story. The SAMP serves as the basis for the overall asset management program. And the pavement AMP is only one of multiple asset classes for the town. We have one for bridges, we have one for curb and gutters, we have ones for guardrails, etc. We regularly discuss and illustrate asset management needs with town leaders. And this is really championed by our Public Works Director, Dan Seiler. And he has for years been telling the story to town leadership and everybody who will listen in the community. He's done a very solid job of making sure that everybody knows. We also gain buy-in and ownership from the entire organization, not just the leaders. So the inspectors who are delivering the project all the way up to the mayor. We involve finance, GIS, traffic, and other staffs in the budget and planning process. We paint a clear and understandable picture of the need versus the budget, which I'll be talking about later. We explain the consequences of risks, or the consequences which are risks of not having a sustainable program. We demonstrate the positive results of a well-funded and well-executed program, and we demonstrate transparency by reporting all results of the program and assets, which I'll also talk about briefly. Our transportation fund is our workhorse for all operations and maintenance needs. It includes salaries, shown as FTEs here, and covers expenditures beyond just pavements. So even within one fund, balancing priorities is important. Out of the FTEs shown here, the PMP team consists of one manager and 4 senior inspectors. This is a small group, but the team accomplishes a great deal over the course of a year. However, keep in mind that the team has a support staff from GIS, finance, traffic, the engineering manager, public works director, and many others. This chart shows our PMP budget since 2017. Maintenance is contracted out due to the large number of specialty maintenance needs. Currently, this is the most cost-effective means of handling our pavement maintenance. The only in-house operation is the annual crack sealing effort and pothole patching done by our streets division. Pavement maintenance recommendations are based on maximizing available dollars and picking maintenance treatments to assist with keeping the life cycle cost low. As of the first of this year, we have 710 lane miles, as I explained prior. This equates to a 2021 budget allocation of $16,200 per lane mile. Taking the budget down to a unit price level allows us to make comparisons against a variety of maintenance treatment schedules. Everything has a life expectancy. This is the average age, or what you can expect under typical conditions. Of course, there are a variety of variables that impact the actual lifespan. Some variables we control and others we don't. Pavements are no different. I'd like to first begin by talking about what life we can expect on average, and I repeat, on average, from our pavements, because the information that follows is theory-based. Again, like all of our transportation assets, knowing the value the community receives from our pavements helps focus our resources. So as a reminder, with pavements, low total cost is the primary area of focus. As I go through the following concepts, I want to provide an understanding of how different maintenance approaches can affect a pavement's lifespan. This is a conceptual life cycle curve of a pavement. As the pavement ages, the condition decreases. Toward the end of its life, the deterioration is a bit quicker. The recommended replacement condition that the town of Castle Rock uses is an OCI, or an overall condition index, of 60 on a scale of 0 to 100, with 100 being new. The recommended condition rating for replacement is not a magic number. That signifies catastrophe. It just means that the pavement is entering a phase that is more susceptible to an increased number of potholes or larger potholes. Of course, this condition is worse in the spring with our warm days and cold nights, known as the freeze-thaw cycle, which we're all intimately familiar with. We've identified that $22,500 per lane mile per year is the lowest or optimum cost curve under current market conditions. So this shows some iterations of the same curve. However, on the far right, it shows multiple iterations to try and extend the life cycle of the roadway to 40 years total before it requires a reconstruction. And that's where we come up with our $22,500 per year per lane mile as our optimum budget, which is pretty high. Just to give you an example here, which should be very familiar to all, we got some alligator cracking indicating problems at the base level, and rutting, which is also showing some structural base weakening. So these are conditions under 60, which require reconstruction. Here's one that we put as an OCI of 40 with alligator cracking indicating some problems at the base level and asphalt material crumbling here. And then finally, here's a very low one. This is a concrete street, believe it or not, showing alligator cracking indicating some problems at the base level. And then concrete material is crumbling over here. So for preserving value and extending life, we conduct accurate field assessments and condition ratings, or what we call OCI, as I mentioned, of our streets. We select streets to maintain based on their age and OCI. And this is a really big deal. Cartograph, our GIS software, is very important to our program. So it helps our predictive analysis, and we could not accomplish near as much as we do without it. We identify the distresses to know what we're dealing with on the streets. We do the right treatments at the right time. Don't be afraid to experiment. We use mineral bond treatments and fiber additives and other things. We do everything to maximize the budget. And of course, we monitor the results. For the level of service, it's another aspect of the PMP for our reconstruction programs. The level of service applies to pavements is the percentage of road segments that are being reconstructed in the optimum window of drivability life, meaning that once the pavement has reached its useful life, the town is budgeting and scheduling the pavement to be reconstructed. This is established with the town's life cycle curve. I have an example of a life cycle curve that would apply to a typical local street. As part of the life cycle, preservation and rehabilitation treatments are needed to reach the lowest life cycle cost of the asset. So it might be hard to see, but on the left, going vertically is a percent, or the OCI rather, 100 at the high end. The red line is right about 50. And then left to right is the age from 0 up to 40 years. And with the proposed treatments and the PMP, crack seal, slurry seal, and overlay, we are working to stay on track with the recommended cycle. So the reconstruction program addresses the level of service at the end. So in blue, you can see, as an example, crack seals. In yellow, slurry seals. In purple, there's an edge mill. There's a full mill on the orange or kind of brown color. So there's a number of treatments over the years which we attempt to attain on the cycle that is shown in order to achieve our full 40-year life cycle, optimizing the program. To do this, the town employs the following treatments. Of course, like everybody, we do patching and crack sealing. We do the standard slurry sealing, which differs from chip seal, of course. We do a lot of asphalt mill and overlay, one of our most common rehab treatments, consisting of removing and replacing asphalt. Then we get into our concrete pavement restoration, which is a common rehab treatment for our pavements. We remove panels and pour back new concrete. And we commonly follow that with diamond grinding to improve the surface smoothness and help the pavement last. Then we have our full depth reclamation or reconstruction. It's pretty much what it sounds like. So we take out the old pavement and put the new back. And this has been a very cost-effective procedure for the town. And finally, curb, gutter, and sidewalk repair is another treatment the PMP does. And this coincides with the pavement treatments. So as an overview, the PMP and reconstruction programs fall in line with the department's SAMP, as previously mentioned. So in addition to the treatment types, let me go back a second, is a regionalized plan to address street maintenance. All secondary streets are within 5 regions, and all primary streets are a standalone network, not region-based. This kind of shows the layout of the town in the different colors here. There's 5 different ones. The central is white on the screen, but those are the 5 regional areas around town that we do our approach on. So primary streets and downtown streets are done in a year. And again, residential streets are done on a 5-year rotation. This map goes on to illustrate it again. So we've got an area in the south, we have an area in the north, which is this year's program, an area in the central in purple, an area in our west, and then an area on the east, which means we'll be back in the north area again in the year 2026. So how is roadway maintenance determined? The first component is condition rating, which is the field aspect of determining an overall condition index, OCI. The next step is to have the pavement management software, which is Cartograph, recommend a treatment from the OCI parameters. Then we evaluate the software's recommendations to ensure the treatment makes sense and is the right treatment for the location. All that combines to create a comprehensive plan to maintain the program's OCI goals and develop budgets. So maintaining a flow through the year is vital to the program's success. We highly recommend doing this. It follows our pavement SAMP, and it looks like this. Starting in February, Asset Management Cartograph puts out a scope of work based on the following calendar year with initial budgets. That same month into March, we perform field condition ratings with our inspectors, reporting to the PMP manager and the GIS coordinator. In March, we generate those cost estimates and provide it into the PMP recommended budget for approval by myself. Also in March, GIS staff produces summary maps showing all secondary and primary streets, as well as budget constrained scenarios and recommendations. Through the summer, we execute the program. We also build the budget for the next year by town staff. So in August and September, the inspectors are performing field assessments for developing quantities for the following year's PMP. In October, we finalize the PMP projects per the budget. In November to December, we're developing and advertising those bid packages. So by December and January, we've got our pre-bid conferences and bid openings on the way. So this year, 2021 PMP calendar follows our SAMP. And I keep hammering on that because that's a useful document that we've created. And it's taken us a couple of years to develop, and it's really been good over the last several years. So we've got our asphalt project from April to June, or the overlay rather. We've got our full depth reclamation from April to May. We have our concrete restoration project from May to June, and our slurry seal project from July to August. And these projects, a lot of them should have already started, but of course with the weather delays, we pushed back a week or two, but they're chomping at the bit to get out there and get these started. And then of course we have our miscellaneous concrete project toward the end of the season, July to August. And that also includes our ADA ramp replacements around town. So all the curb ramps that are targeted for replacement and those that are with the projects are being done with our concrete program. All PMP projects are to be completed by October, weather permitting. Here's an overview map of this year's PMP as well, which is color coded to the treatment types. So in the lower right-hand corner, you see in the light blue, that's our 2-inch mill and overlays. The dark blue is our 3-inch mill and overlay streets. And on the left and right maps, the left are our locals, the right are our primary roadways. Same color codes, but you can see that we're very targeted to the streets that we do within those areas. In the red, in the dark blue is the 3-inch mill and overlay. So sometimes we do a thicker mill and overlay to get more extended life. And for pennies on the dollar, it makes sense to go with that additional inch of mill. For the asphalt slurry, that's in red. And for the concrete pavement restorations, those are shown in yellow or the orangish color. And then finally in purple are the roadway reconstructions, which are our full depth reclamations. Transparency. Defining and reporting of our service levels assists us not only with being accountable to our community stakeholders, but also greatly assists with assessing potential changes. Our strategic asset management plan reinforces this, and the development of our report card, which we do every 2 years, was designed to provide transparency and assessment of risk. So finally, I'd like to share some lessons learned and innovations. First thing, I'd like to point out that APWA accreditation of the town assists greatly with developing our public works SOPs. That is also dovetailed well into our asset management program. Skilled visual observations by a staff of 4 inspectors in lieu of electronic data collecting systems is working very well. It's very hard to replace the judgment of the eyes of the field inspectors. And for the last 3 years, we've really calibrated the program in and have aligned very well with our GIS systems. So we're finding that the OCI gained by the inspectors is now starting to calibrate and match up with what the GSI prediction or GIS predictions are showing. Coordination for crack seal a year ahead of the primary treatment is a good idea to get out there, get those streets crack sealed beforehand. And then contracting out all our primary treatments has been cost effective for the town of Castle Rock, at least, with concrete, slurry, overlay, FDR, and restoration programs. We start the budget process early, as I mentioned previously, for the following year, starting in February and March. We provide punch lists to the contractor before they leave town. And then 30 days prior to the end of the warranty period, we also provide a punch list. And we also encourage the contractor to go with us out on the final punch list inspection. We coordinate striping with the traffic division for changes to our striping patterns and features. So if we're not putting the pavement, say on a mill and overlay, back the way it was beforehand, the cost is on us to put the striping back. But then if there's something that we want to do, like Sharrows lanes or additional markings that the traffic division desires, they will coordinate with us and they will budget in the additional cost to go into our program. It's very helpful. Another lesson learned, we provide a golf cart. The contractor, actually, within the contract, is required to provide access to residents' locations during slurry operations. So if a street is black and sticky or there's operations going on, that golf cart can get in and drop people off and pick them back up. So that's something that's written in if needed during the process. We stopped doing chip seals due to the liability of cracked windshields, so we're doing slurry exclusively. The town faced several windshield claims while we did chip seal previously. So yeah, it probably isn't something we wanted to continue. We also provide an erosion control plan to the contractor. It's a big time saver. The staff provides that. We have one of our inspectors on staff who's versed in AutoCAD, so they provide that to our stormwater folks, get that approved ahead of time. So they're on the ground running without having to wait on erosion control plans. Thicker overlay treatments. I kind of mentioned that. Sometimes we'll go with a 3-inch mill and overlay as opposed to a 2-inch to get some extended life out of a roadway, or to try and create a mid life cycle course correction in order to prevent having to do a reconstruct. And then a full depth reclamations are very cost effective for us. Other lessons that I don't have listed here, we add irrigation repair into the contract, which is really good to make sure that within 72 hours of being in front of a resident's house, that contractor's got to repair any damages to their irrigation systems. And I'd also like to add the importance of having inspectors who are very responsive to the contractors, and the town is very timely with payments to the contractors. So that makes contractors really wanting to work for the town of Castle Rock. So that's it for lessons learned. To learn more about this year's road work, visit our website at crgov.com/PMP. With that, I'd like to thank you, and make sure you tell your story to your town leadership and staffs. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. I had a couple questions for you. Is your strategic asset management plan and or your transportation infrastructure report card available online for people to review?
You know, Renee, I'd have to check the online status, but if it's not, I'll certainly provide it to you directly if you want to share that.
Okay, All right, thank you very much. The other thing I was a little shocked to hear about your chip seal story and how you've transitioned to solely slurry seal. I live in Broomfield, and chip seal is a big favorite of Broomfield. I was wondering, do you think it might have had, was it in areas of higher speed? Do you think speed on those particular roadways might have had an effect, or?
You know, Renee, that's a good question. The chip seals actually ended before I started with the town 2 years ago, but talking to our PMP manager, it was even happening on local streets, because there's some local roadways and collectors that people get some pretty high speeds on, and they're going to flip up those chips and cause those dings in the windshield. So yeah, that's something that happens even on our local streets.
Wow, yeah, that was surprising. We do have another question for you. What is the town's policy on installing under drains on reconstruction projects?
Oh, that's a great question, because we have been doing that in coordination with our stormwater division. They have been assisting with, well, it's a joint effort. So we're working with them, and it's in its first couple years of work on a reconstruct. We will go ahead and put in an under drain along the front of the curb or behind the sidewalk. On our local streets in town, almost exclusively, they're attached to monolithic sidewalk to curb. And 90% of the drainage issues are coming from, say, residential lots, from over irrigation, and that's affecting the pavements. So instead of putting the under drain in front of the lip of the curb in the pavement, we typically try to get those under drains behind the back of sidewalk, and then put some neck downs from the drains, from the swales on the side lots and whatnot. But it's an active under drain system, which then ties into the nearest outfall, whether that be an inlet or a ditch or a channel or something like that. But it's a very good question. We're working through it. We've had some success on that this past year. Those systems are in place and operating quite effectively, but we're still working through that. We do coordinate again with our stormwater division to see what opportunities there are. We usually get citizen complaints about water going over the sidewalks, whether it's causing mossy conditions in the summer or whether it's icy conditions in the winter. But yes, that's something that we're working on.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll open it to more questions at the end. At this time, I'll introduce our next speaker is Danny Smith, and he has worked in the public works operations field for 10 plus years, 3.5 with the town of Parker as the public works operations manager, leading the streets and stormwater maintenance divisions. Danny is also, I will add, a member of our Karma board and helped us to work on this street conference virtual sessions. I appreciate his help. And Danny is also an APWA certified public works professional, and he lives with his family in Douglas County. Danny?
Good morning. Share my screen and make sure everything's good. Sorry, can you see my screen yet, Renee?
We can see the screen, and you are opening the presentation. There it is. It's good.
All right. Good morning, everyone. As Renee mentioned, I'm Danny Smith with the town of Parker, and I am going to talk about the town of Parker pavement preservation and management program. Like Brian, our program does include resurfacing and reconstruct. I would like to start out with, this is the way we do it in Parker. This is not the only way to do it, and there probably is a wrong way, but I think if you're doing some pavement preservation, you're on the right track. So town of Parker, we have currently approximately 534 lane miles that we maintain. 87% of those are asphalt and about 13% concrete. Our current overall pavement condition index is a 76. I also wanted to add that we are responsible for 20 plus town parking lots. So we do active preservation on those as well. And then the infamous graph that shows the proper time and the benefit of doing preservation and maintenance on your pavements. Of our 534 lane miles, 50% are local or residential streets. So that is where quite a bit of our effort is focused. We are resurfacing or reconstructing or preserving about 15% of our network annually. So our program is currently based on a time interval with consideration given to the condition, the overall pavement PCI score. We currently collect that data every 5 years. For those of you that have done that, it's an expensive endeavor to contract it, and it takes a little bit of time. I'm going to talk later. We're looking to go to a different collection method in the future. Town of Parker has had a formal pavement preservation program for about 7 years, and by formal I mean had an actual plan going into a year. There was some preservation prior to that, but it was random and not really an actual program or a plan. Our program is primarily chip seal and slurry seal, although we are starting to integrate some additional preservation methods like rejuvenation, seal coat, and microsurfacing. And we do and will continue to resurface streets as part of the pavement management program. Our typical annual budget, we spend about $2 million on resurfacing. That's mill and overlay. $1.8 million for actual, what I would consider preservation, the chip, micro, rejuvenation, and slurry seal. We spend approximately $1.5 million on concrete repairs. This includes sidewalk, curb, and gutter townwide, as well as panels on concrete streets. And then about $1.5 million annually for a full reconstruct. That's beyond a mill and overlay. That's complete removal of the surface and some conditioning or augmenting of the base material. This map is difficult to see, but this is our current pavement condition index, and that's as of 2019. That was the last time we collected data. So green is good, blue is okay, and probably where we focus a good majority of our resources. And then of course, red is poor and needs some further corrective action, probably a reconstruct. We look at pavement preservation as a way to extend the life of the pavement, increase the return on investment, and also limit disruption to residents. So we use chip seals and microsurfacing on collector and arterial roadways. Slurry seals for us are limited to residential streets. Asphalt rejuvenation and seal coats, while new to the town, they're not new methods. They are proven. And again, we're starting to integrate those into our plan. And all of these are proven and accepted methods to extend the pavement life. Again, another look at the graph. The more money you spend upfront in maintenance or preservation will save you money in years ahead. So right now, chip seals and microsurfacing, we're at about every 5 years, reapplying or applying that treatment. The same with slurry seals. As I mentioned, we're on a time-based program right now. So if something we slurry sealed in 2020, we expect to apply another slurry seal in 2025. Rejuvenation and seal coats, again, these are fairly new to us, but we're anticipating every 3 to 4 years. They are a lower cost preservation method, so we can afford to have that return interval to be a little less than the slurry seal or chip seal. And then Brian mentioned this as well. We have completed some grind saw seal projects on our concrete streets. I anticipate we'll be doing more, but that's about a 10-year return interval. And then resurfacing, we would like to get 30 plus years out of a pavement before we do a mill and overlay. As I mentioned, slurry seal, we limit this to residential streets, and we're doing plus or minus 50 lane miles annually. One question that we're going to have to answer, and there may be an answer out there already, but this is something that keeps me up at night. Slurry over slurry, how much is too much? So how many years can we apply a slurry seal over a slurry seal continually before we have to do a mill and overlay, a reconstruct, or something different? We still do chip seal, although it can be a problem for us and has been. And at this time, I anticipate still doing it, but I'm always looking for new alternatives. We use a 3/8 chip. These are on our collector and arterial streets. We do about 10 lane miles annually. Microsurfacing, we have done a little bit of microsurfacing, and we're going to do some more this year. For those of you, microsurfacing is applied in a similar manner to slurry seal. It's just a little more robust for collector and arterial streets. We're looking at about eight lane miles annually, and we're still deciding on the longevity and the next step. If we put a microsurface over a chip, do we have room for additional preservation, or is this the last step for resurfacing? And we'll know in a few years and be able to tell you that. Asphalt rejuvenation, we have experimented with a little bit. We like the results, and we're going to do a little bit more this year, about 10 lane miles. This will be on local or residential streets. As I mentioned, we're still evaluating. Asphalt rejuvenation needs to be on a newer pavement. So we're looking at the 3 to 4 year window for the first application, and then that same time period for the second application. And as I mentioned, mill and overlay. So once that surface has reached the end of the service life, then we're going to mill and overlay about 12 lane miles annually. Our primary focus thus far has been on our arterial and collector, although I expect we're going to be jumping into the local street resurfacing here in the near future. One approach we're taking is that our arterial and collector streets, we're going to be using SMA or stone matrix. Some people call it stone mastic asphalt. There isn't an increased additional cost. It's been about 25% more for us than standard asphalt, but we expect a life cycle of 50 to 100% longer than HMA. That may be a little optimistic, but we're going to try it. We're not the first in the Denver metro area. There's quite a bit of SMA that's placed annually. SMA is more resistant, not completely, more resistant to cracking, rutting, potholes. Concrete streets. We do 13% of our streets are concrete. So as part of our preservation program, we replaced damaged panels. We want to get the maximum life out of those concrete streets as well. And then we have completed some and will continue to do a diamond grind and sol seal as part of the preservation for concrete streets. We do reconstruction every year. This typically includes the removal of the distressed pavement to be replaced with a composite asphalt pavement section. So when we do a reconstruct in Parker, we're not only removing that distressed pavement, we're also doing something, either removal of the native base and placing back an ABC, an aggregate base course, or some kind of treatment of the native base, up into including using grid to bolster that. When we do a reconstruct, all the assets, including the curb ramps and pavement markings, are updated to current standards, and that's true with any of our preservation as well. A lot of times our reconstruct may be dictated by a capital improvement project. So for instance, we have a street in town that we're currently adding another bridge span to, and for that project, the reconstruct will include the street leading to and from that the older bridge span and the new bridge span. And our most recent reconstructs have been the removal and replacement of concrete surfaces. Our concrete streets for a long time did not have any preservation other than panel replacement. So they deteriorated to a point that reconstruct was the smart move from a budget standpoint. And we replaced those with asphalt. Our town staff do quite a few maintenance tasks for us, crack sealing, large crack repair, patching, concrete repairs. These guys are vital and an integral part of our pavement preservation program, and it would not be successful without the work that they do. We're currently working 1 year ahead of contracted preservation. So if we have a street slated for story seal or chip seal in 2022, those guys will be working doing patching and repairs on that this year. This is a map of the town's 2021 maintenance program. Includes all of our construction activities and some work that's to be performed by CDOT. But as you can see, we have our CIP projects, our reconstruct, select concrete replacement, which is panel replacement, the mill and overlay, chip seal, rejuvenation, microsurfacing, story seal, and concrete spot work. So the concrete spot work is sidewalk, curb, and gutter. And again, those areas that they're working on in 2021 are areas that will be resurfaced or receive a preservation treatment in 2022. So I wanted to talk to you about some of the things that that you need to be aware of if you don't have a preservation program and are starting one or in the early stages of one. Chip seal will shed, and as Brian mentioned, that material will go all kinds of places. Fortunately, we haven't had a lot of windshield claims, but we do see a lot of it on the sidewalk. This is an extreme case. Don't pretend that all chip seals shed this much. This is an extreme shed, but application temperatures matter. So the timing of your application is very important. Plow, in my opinion, plow type and bits matter. Pressure down plows wreak havoc on chip seal, in my opinion. And no matter what, chip will shed. So you need to be prepared to deal with that. Cracks are still there and will reflect even when filled with a crack seal material, be that mastic or traditional crack seal. The full depth repairs, where you can actually remove that crack and go back with new asphalt, they seem to hold up better under the preservation treatment. So a lot of this will be in residential under the a story seal. Those cracks about a year later will reflect, if not, even if filled with crack seal material. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm always amazed when I get a call about there's a crack in my street. There seems to be cracks in every street. So some other issues and concerns. It's important to manage expectations with preservation. Preservation is not new asphalt. So a lot of residents, especially with story seal, story will shed a little bit like chip, but they don't understand what they're getting. So it's important to manage expectations about what preservation truly is. Educate your stakeholders, and I'm talking about council members, I'm talking about politicians in your community. Make them your advocate, explain what preservation is, explain the benefits of preservation and why you're doing it, and it will make your life a little bit easier on the back end. And this one, people will adjust to long-term work zones. Preservation is generally a short-term and moving operation. Those same people will lose their minds during short-term rolling operations. So if you're doing a chip seal on an arterial roadway, be prepared and plan for it, because people just have a hard time with moving work zones. Some other things, ADA ramps. So if you're doing a resurface or a chip seal, you have to update those ADA ramps. So I would plan on that. We update typically with the slurry seal as well. We just go ahead and do them, and that way we're done. But we spend about $40,000 annually removing perfectly good curb ramps to replace them with minor changes. Pavement markings, as Brian mentioned as well, when you have a preservation, you're going to have to replace the pavement markings and in some places upgrade them. So for our program, we're spending $185,000 in 2021 on all of our projects for pavement markings. Patching prior to preservation. If you don't get it taken care of, it will reflect back through. I agree, working a year ahead makes life a little bit easier and ensures that you get any patching completed prior to your preservation. The same with crack sealing. If you can do that a year ahead, you're better off. If you've done chips or slurry seal specifically, if you crack seal very close to the application, it's going to pull that crack seal back out and create a kind of a mess for you. Project management and inspection, it's important that you have, whether contracted or in-house, a person that is assigned to ensuring the contractor is completing things per the contract and to the published standards. And then finally, outreach and communication, a must do. So it's very important. And again, with slurry seal in the residential, that you let people know what's going to happen before it does. We also have golf carts available for our residents, but still, that outreach and communication, it never fails. 2 people every year are going to be moving on the day that you want to do a slurry seal on their street. Garbage pickup is impacted, and there are people with special needs that need to be considered as well. So for the future, Town of Parker, we really would like to shift more to a PCI-driven program, so the condition index program, rather than the time interval. And that's something that we're looking at and working on. PCI data collection, timing, and methodology. There's more than one way to do this. We have been looking at some artificial intelligence programs that and evaluating those. And I think we're trying to adopt one and give it a try, that we can collect data with a smartphone and just driving the street, that we can have that data available a few hours after we go collect it. And it's at a reduced cost of the traditional contracted method. The other option, as Brian mentioned, is to train staff to go out and do that data collection. Continue to evaluate new preservation methods. It's not like there's new preservation methods that come out every year, but there are some new methods developed, and there are new to us. We did chip slurry and stuck with that for a long time, and now we're sticking our neck out a little bit and trying some different things. The timing of application, sooner rather than later. And by that, I mean, instead of 5 years, should we be putting that first preservation on at 3-4 years, or can we wait a little bit longer? One of our goals, and I'll get to that. So what will SMA be for our program, mean to our preservation program? We're hoping that we get a little bit longer life and can delay that first treatment, or and delay the total number of treatments over the life of the pavement. Thin lift overlays for local streets. So, rather than mill and resurface the entire street, can we do an edge mill and do a thin lift for that local street? And then funding. Define adequate, because like most public works people, if you ask me, I'll probably never have adequate funding, no matter what the number is. So wanted to thank you all for attending and allowing me to present. And if you would like any other information about the Town of Parker's program, feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. I had one question for you. On your map, on your color-coded map with your lines, blue, green, and red.
Yes.
That's something live that your operators and maintainers can update, or is it a particular individual's job responsibility?
So are you referring to the pavement condition index map?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's a result of our data collection, was prepared for us by our GIS staff. Okay. With the different process for collecting data that I mentioned, going to the artificial intelligence, then we would have that map available to everyone in real time at any time.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I will also welcome Brian back, and we'll open it up to any additional questions that everyone has. I do have one question for Brian that's come in. What is the biggest challenge the town of Castle Rock faces with regards to pavement preservation?
The biggest challenge the town faces, I would say in previous years, probably the budget. You know, as Danny pointed out, I think budget's one of our biggest difficulties, and keeping the work tempo, I guess, would be another one. Making sure that we can meet those objectives February through January. And I say it not January through December because it really starts for the next year in February, where we're getting that OCI recommended from the GIS program for the coming year. Then the eyes on have to actually go out there and do those inspections. We got a good lead on it this year, but you know, last year we were a little behind the power curve with snow on streets and such. But you know, just trying to keep on time with all of our targets. So if we fall even a month behind, it really is something that is difficult for the program because it's very fast paced through the year, especially when you have projects that are starting up in April and, you know, going through October. So I'd say that's one of the big challenges. We've had some good success working with our contractors, though. It's been a really good relationship.
Excellent. Thank you. This question is for Danny. Does the town of Parker use an asset management software such as Cartograph? And if so, what do you use?
We use a program called Beehive, which is, it's not Cartograph, but it is similar in function.
Okay. Is that the website if someone were to type beehive.com or something, or you know it off the top?
Yeah, so Beehive Asset Management, I think I would try for a search, but it is a GIS based program.
All right, excellent. We have a couple minutes left. Does anyone else have any additional questions? Either type in the chat pod or you can unmute at this time and ask your questions to the group. Give people a chance to locate their unmute button. All right, I don't know that we have any additional questions at this time. From the APWA and the Karma Committee, a very big thank you to everyone involved with providing this session today. Thank you to our speakers, Brian and Danny. I appreciate your time. And also to Pam Weimer, the APWA administrator, for all her behind the scenes help. We couldn't get these sessions successfully completed without her help. I would like to remind everyone about the last of our upcoming street conference virtual sessions, and that is next week, April 29th on Thursday, on shared use of public facilities and services. Hope to see you all then. I hope everyone has a nice week and a nice weekend. Enjoy Earth Day, everyone.